Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hello everyone, Carrie here, and today I have something special as I was able to get my hands on a rare miniature with an interesting background, the Russian crowdfunding Marauder. Before I talk about the miniature itself, I want to give everyone a little background on this mini. There isn't too much information out there on the model that I can find, though what I have been able to determine through the use of some friends at various inter-sphere intelligence agencies is that there was a crowdfunding campaign to create a Russian language BattleTech, a game of armored combat box for the Russian market. And this model, along with one other confirmed and possibly another which I haven't confirmed yet, were created with the blessings of Catalyst Game Labs. As part of my investigation, I did reach out to Ray at CGL with this question. I had this beauty fall into my hands. It is alleged to be a Russian Marauder mini made as part of a crowdfunding campaign to make a Russian language version of a game of armored combat box. From what I understand, this was done with the blessing of Catalyst, and I was wondering if you could confirm this. Also, if that is true, is there any background you could give me? Ray responded, I don't have any background to share on that, nor could I tell you if the one you have is authentic. But what you've stated is correct. Those were made as part of a crowdfunding for official Russian BattleTech. I know they didn't use our file for it, they rebuilt it for some reason, and it just doesn't look right. I also asked Bobby about it at Fortress, who is the source of the mini for me, and this is what he had to say when I asked about it. The Russian Marauder was cleared by CGL as a benefit for a Kickstarter-like project they did in Russia to get AGOAC printed in Russia. It was provided as a benefit if you ordered. It was based off some of the work from the Marauder in the Force Pack, but broken into more parts for positioning options. There is only one person authorized to print them as well, from my understanding. Now, while Bobby isn't a CGL source, what he is telling me lines up with the information I was able to get from Ray on the miniature. As far as if it is an official mini or not, well, it was made with authorization from CGL, and that would seem to be pretty official to me. Now, before we look at the mini, I want to thank our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games, for bringing this beauty to us, and also want to let you know about them. Fortress carries just about anything you could want for BattleTech, as well as a range of other tabletop games, from official minis from Catalyst Game Labs and Iron Wind Metals, to mats, terrain, dice, and even oddities like the one we're looking at today. Fortress is the go-to place for your BattleTech fix, so check them out at fortressminiaturesandgames.com. A link can be found in the description below. Now, let's finally take a look at this miniature. The Russian Marauder comes in 13 parts and is quite easy to assemble. The legs each consist of a foot, one flat and one in a grabbing position, a lower and upper leg, and a hip. The Marauder's upper body has the main torso, the dorsal gun, and each arm has an upper and lower part. The parts are assembled with a peg and hole assembly, making assembly of the miniature quite easy, and giving the Marauder a great deal of durability. In assembling it, I did have to trim some of the injection and vent gates from the miniature. These are generally located in places where you won't see any of the points you have to trim in its final assembled form. Aside from the gates, I really didn't find myself dealing with any flash, and mold lines are almost non-existent on the model, which I found quite surprising. Overall, on the quality side, it is pretty good, with the only mold line and interesting flaw that I found on the back of one of the lower legs, where there's a vent on one and it's absent on the other. One might think that this is a casting error, but given there is a perfectly flat surface there, I think somehow they forgot to put the detail on the back of the legs in the master mold. Overall though, I would say that it is of pretty high quality. Considering that the mini was cast in resin supposedly, We'll get to that later though. When comparing it to the Ironwind Metals or the CGL Marauders, there are a few differences. While they do share similar overall profiles, the Russian Marauder is, well, girthier and stockier. The Russian Marauder is shorter in the overall length of its torso, with a wider torso assembly as well, which gives it a wider overall arm span than its American cousins. Also, the Russian version seems to have far more greebles than its domestic counterparts. Some people may look at this as a good thing, and for me, it's sort of a non-issue. But if you already don't like the more frequent paneling and greebling of the new scene minis for either freehand or decal placement, this version doesn't offer you too many places to play with, except on top of the torso where it does have a nice flat area under the dorsal autocannon. I will say the mech is distinctly recognizable as a Marauder though, much like the new scene versions we have been able to get our hands on regularly. Sorry, Project Phoenix, you just don't cut the mustard on that one. There is one other thing I want to discuss concerning the Mini though, and that is, well, comparing it to the premium miniatures. I said earlier that this is supposedly a resin cast miniature, but when working on it, the places I had to cut and trim to remove the gates and vents didn't cut like any resin I've ever worked with. And I have done everything from 3D printing to casting and pouring my own resin bases in the past. The material just doesn't feel like it's resin, and feels much more like Ceocast, or some other kind of soft plastic. While I don't think they're injection molded plastic like what we get from CGL, they definitely don't feel like poured resin. This leads me to believe that they are either Ceocast or something similar, and with Monster Fight Club putting out such classics as the wide-shouldered Wolverine, the bow-legged Vulture, the Mini Rifleman, and let's not forget the Beats by Dre Phoenix Hawk, I really think there is a lesson to be learned here. I will always put forward that Ironwind Metals should be doing the premium minis, as they already do variants of the new scene miniatures, with my favorites so far being the Royal Battlemaster and Arrow 4 Urban Mech. And this Marauder itself, having some issues with the design, there are parts where it has incredibly fine detail, and I feel like Catalyst and the premium miniatures seem to be getting the short end of the stick when it comes to the products that are getting put out from Monster Fight Club. If anything, I think this more than proves that even with the inherent flaws in the design, because they decided to redesign the miniature themselves instead of using CGL's files, that Monster Fight Club is not up to the task of creating the premium minis, and it should be turned over to someone more capable, or the CGL should just be rejecting their work until they learn how to get it right. Now, all of that being said, this is a wonderful miniature, and since we have a Marauder from Russia, I can think of only one thing to do with it. Slava Ukraine. I want to thank all of our patrons who help make this possible. First, at Captain, we have Sarah. And then our lieutenants, Boy in a Box, Gus, Haley, Nathan, and Will. And then our sergeants, BZ Archer, Faz, Steven, and finally our cadets, NB Kaiju, Housemaster Poding, Jamie, and Scott. Thank you all so much for supporting the podcast and the channel. You all make this so possible. Also, I do want to mention once again our sponsor and mercenary liaison, FortressMiniaturesandGames.com.